Good morning, everybody. Hi. Morning. Here we're attending this talk called "Reading is Everyone's Business" with Almario and Dina Ocampo. My name is Brian Ocampo, your moderator for today. Progressive educators Almario and Ocampo share stories of communities taking into their own hands creative and unconventional ways of addressing the country's literacy crisis. It takes a village to teach reading through a wealth of stories, their very own and from afar, or from a time past and in their own languages. Dina Ocampo is a professor of the University of the Philippines College of Education, where she teaches courses on literacy development, difficulties, and research. Presently, she is co-convener of the Education Research Program at the University of the Philippines Center for Integrative and Development Studies. She is also the current editor-in-chief of the Philippine Journal on Education Studies. She was Dean of the University of the Philippines College of Education from 2010 to 2013. From 2013 to 2017, she served as Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction at the Department of Education. She continues to collaborate with local and international peers in the academe, government, and non-governmental organizations on shared advocacies. Presently, she is a member of the Technical Committee on Teacher Education of the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM 2. Annie Almario has over 25 years of experience in children's book publishing and 20 years in K-12 education. She is the founding director of the Raya School and vice president for product development at the Adarna House, the Philippines' first and largest children's book publisher. A core committee member of the National Book Development Board for the Frankfurter Buchmesse 2025 Guest of Honor program. Annie is also the former president of the Book Development Association of the Philippines and the Reading Association of the Philippines, and former Secretary General of the Philippine Board on Books for Young People, or the PBBY. For everybody, guys, if we would like to remind the audience, now, if you need real-time translation devices in German, our staff can provide it for you. All right. So yeah, ma'am. Morning.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here for our session. Next slide, please. So these are, we can skip this already. That's us. Okay. So the first part of our presentation is on structured literacy for Filipino children. Next, please. And this comes from the widely known fact that many Filipino children are not learning to read enough. Sorry, please go back. And well, education data tell us that Filipino children are not independent readers at the age of, at grade 3. And this is something that we have to address squarely. It's very good that we have this data so that we know what we need to do. And a lot of people have been responding to this need in the last few years. So we are here to share some of the things I've been doing about that. Next, please. So just to have an understanding of what seems to be going on, the identified causes of low literacy are lack of literacy practice or reading practice, inadequate teaching, and poor materials. And this leads to delays in literacy development. So if we want to improve literacy performance among young children, we need to work on these 3 variables. Next, please. And we also know that there's such a thing as a Matthews effect in reading, wherein those with poor foundational skills in literacy actually do not acquire the subsequent skills that are needed for academic literacy, academic language use. So if we have established, or we are able to establish good foundational skills among young children, then it is more likely that they will develop adequate reading comprehension at grade level. Next, please. So what is structured literacy? The International Dyslexia Association in 2016 defined it as an evidence-based intervention. And this intervention is designed for the following: young children or readers at risk, but we also want to include older struggling readers. And foundational literacy skills are comprised of many small cognitive, linguistic, and executive function abilities. For example, phonological awareness, letter sound knowledge, being able to decode sounds into spoken words, spelling, which is the inverse of decoding, of course, vocabulary, oral language, and comprehension. The qualities of a structured literacy program is not just teaching them phonics or teaching them spelling. What we want to do is to root them in culturally responsive material. We follow an explicit process of instruction, and of course, we have to make it systematic such that the children are able to build their knowledge. And then we also do cumulative instruction and frequent monitoring of their learning. And the assessment component is always missing in a lot of intervention programs. And in structured literacy, this is a strong component of a literacy intervention. Next, please. So in the very simple view of reading, what we say is that reading comprehension is the product of being able to decode words and of listening comprehension. This seems to be a very simple, straightforward formula. This is what children should be able to do. To understand what they read, they need decoding and listening comprehension. However, in the Philippines, in the next slide, yes, in the Philippines, we are a multilingual country, and therefore, it's not as straightforward as it would be in a monolingual environment, which is, monolingual environments, by the way, are decreasing in number all over the world. No? The Philippines is a very multilingual context, and so a lot of children need to decode and encode their experiences in multiple languages. So, for early grades, there is emphasis on being able, at home, of course, being able to use their mother tongues. It would be ideal if they're able to learn their literacy in their mother tongues first, and then learn Filipino and in English. As you can see, Filipino children are probably learning 3 or 4 languages simultaneously. But in school, there is emphasis on Filipino and English. For the purposes of this paper, we are talking about Filipino literacy. Next, please. So we are sharing with you a research-based program that we developed over the last few years. It's a structured literacy program. We call it Tuklas Basa or Discover Reading in English. And I will show you parts of it, some parts of it, in the interest of time, just to be very quick. This program aims to help children acquire these basic foundational skills in literacy. Next, please. So what we've done is we've created 2 giant mega boxes of materials. You might ask, why are they in plastic mega boxes? Because there's a lot of flood in the Philippines. And so we want to bring these mega boxes to communities, and all the materials are in these mega boxes, and in case there is a flood, they will just float. Yes, okay. And the materials will be protected because they are very difficult to bring to certain places. So the first iteration of Tuklas Basa was for individual instruction. We call it pang solo. Okay, next please. So we, nagtanggal ako ng slide. This we uses the Marungko technique. It's a locally developed strategy for teaching phonics. And it was developed long ago in Angat, Bulacan, where it adds up letters. Next, please. We emphasize alphabet knowledge. We have encountered in our prior research to developing this that there are children in grades 3, 4, and onwards who don't have mastery of the alphabet. If you look at it, it's a 28-letter alphabet, so it subsumes the English alphabet plus the 2 additional letters of the Filipino alphabet. All illustrations we've tried, we are original to make sure that we don't run into copyright issues. Next, please. Then we do a lot of oral language instruction, and children are therefore interacting with stories with the teacher. And what we've done is we've created a process where in Tuklas Basa Solo, wherein anybody who can read will be able to teach a child to read. So the process does not require teacher intervention. It can be an older child following these instructions for literacy. Next. The next components are listening comprehension. So as you can see on that part, we have instructions for the tutor. And on this part is where the children will be paying attention. So what we've tried to do is to keep it low material intensive. Next. And then we do phonological awareness, and we emphasize syllabication. The Philippines is a very syllabic language. So we want to use that ability so that they can capitalize on that for their next level, which is phonics, or learning sounds of letters. Next. So this is the phonics level. And again, before we go into phonics, we have them syllabicate letters. So we make sure they can hear the sounds of language. Next. Then we have a lot of vocabulary materials. If you look, we've tried to keep the material strong. So we laminated them so that many children can use them over and over in communities. Next. And then we have fluency and reading comprehension. And hopefully, we build from reading words to phrases, to sentences, to stories, and of course, to comprehension. We try to keep the comprehension light so that the children don't have to be so stressed with reading. But also, we want the stories go from a little easy and they go to difficult. So we have done some assessments. And as you can see, these are fake names from Community Hub. We've been working with community literacy hubs in Metro Manila as well as in other places. And we've done assessments with the children. And we are able to identify who are the children who are able to comprehend material and who are the children who cannot. And this gives us a good starting point for instruction for Tuklas Solo. We are working with, later I will show you photos of we are working with. The next iteration is a smaller box. It's Tuklas Basa Pang Grupo, and it is for group instruction of 8 to 10 children only. And we've also done research on this. So this is a smaller box, and we have lessons for 20 days. Next, please. And in that box are games, storybooks for group instruction, and where children are able to do their matching of sounds and letters and all of that. We also use a workbook to reinforce children's learning. Next, please. So we've done 2 assessments with 2 schools, and we've been able to show that it creates a huge impact on the various literacy skills or cognitive skills that accompany or are foundational to learning to read. And we are quite happy with the results. And we are happy to share that because we are able to assess, more NGOs and more civil society organizations are interested in using the Tuklas Basa to teach the community children literacy, because this is really a widespread issue. Just to show you some of our partners. So in this particular slide, you will see Tuklas Basa Pang Grupo, or for the group. And what they're doing is there's a school teacher who is handling the remedial session for the children they identified. In this group, we are working with an NGO, and they have brought it to 4 provinces. Next. Okay, this is by the University of the Philippines, Diliman. What they do is a different version. They use the Tuklas Basa Pang Solo, but they first have a group storytelling activity before they now disperse to individual volunteer tutors and use the Tuklas Basa Pang Solo for intervention. At the moment, they're working with grade 2 children at the ratio of 1:2. So it's not individual. They're doing duo teaching. Next is Bayan Ko, Teacher Ko. So there's an NGO that took the Tuklas Basa and rebranded it for their NGO. And they are working with over 1,500 children in various community learning hubs across the country. And so far, the data is also telling us that the structured literacy program is actually working for these children. Okay, so if our understanding of reading comprehension includes context, the social cultural environment where the child is, and we value that, we also match the need of the child with the intervention being used. So if a child has greater literacy difficulties, we have Tuklas Basa for individual instruction. If the child can learn within a group, there is Tuklas Basa for group instruction. And because of that, we are able to match properly the activity to the reader's requirements. And because of that, we are pushing further groups to continue pursuing beyond learning to read to actually reading to learn. And we have, for example, we have Wikahon by Adarna House that now has leveled readers that allows children to start at the level of their comprehension, and then they can move higher and higher as they become more confident and more competent. So these are the materials of Wikahon, which contains level text, guide questions, answer keys, and teacher's guides. Okay, so structured literacy through programs such as Tuklas Basa and Wikahon develop young readers who can and who will read. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad that we have the Philippines' best reading educator to go through the technical part of our presentation. And now I'm going to talk to you about what Filipino kids read, what they enjoy reading, and share with you some efforts from both the government and the community to engage children in reading. So what kids are really reading? What are kids really reading? Next slide. According to the 2023 readership survey held by the National Book Development Board, 2,400 Filipino children aged 8 to 17 were surveyed. 47% of these children were reported reading non-school books, with print books remaining the preferred medium for most genres. Among these children, they start reading at the age of 9, and their language preference leans towards both Filipino and English. Next slide. So what are our kids reading? Just to give you an idea of the reading profile of Filipino kids, they enjoy suspense, horror, fantasy, sci-fi, folk literature, leisure, romance, and of course, the Bible. Yes. The most popular literary forms for children are picture books, short stories, poetry, and graphic novels. And their main considerations when choosing non-school books are book availability and affordability. And I'm so happy that the National Book Development Board really addressed the issue of availability through their Book Nook project, which I will also be talking about in a while. So the average children's book reader reads in Filipino for less than an hour a day using a printed book borrowed from someone. They typically finish 3 children's books a year, which is such a low number, too low a number. So later on, I'll be sharing what the community and what the government is doing to address this. Next slide. So because Adarna has been around the longest, our publishing house has been around the longest, I wanted to share with you our bestsellers. Okay, so these bestsellers, they have sold the most for the last 45 years. We've been around for 45 years. And these books have sold the most, are the most popular. There are around 4 of these that are like traditional folk tales. There are 2 books that feature the relationship between mothers and daughters. There is a very popular book, Chenilin, which is about a family's relationship with their nanny. In the Philippines, we call them yaya. and they are an integral part of our family. There is a book about a child with leukemia, a child that was left in school. Nobody picked her up. Her mom was late in picking her up, and you will see that Filipino children love to read about their typical experience, but they're also still enamored with traditional folk tales. Next slide. So here's the project that I mentioned earlier, the Book Nook project, which is so has proven to be such a formidable and effective way of encouraging children to read. Next slide. The Book Nook project is an NBDB initiative, or the National Book Development Board. And what they do is to establish libraries and reading spaces, storytelling spaces in heritage houses, in libraries, in schools, in municipal offices, anywhere and everywhere that a community is willing to house the books that are donated by both publishers and the government. Next slide. As of September of this year, there are already 133 Book Nook sites from the north to the south of the Philippines. 141,000 Philippine published books distributed to communities nationwide, and 61,000 books have been borrowed by Book Nook readers. So when they do that readership survey, I'm hoping to see the effect of the Book Nook. Next slide. So what's in a Book Nook? There is a Book Nook package which consists of Filipino published books for readers of all ages across different genres and across different formats and languages. And these books you can borrow freely. Who runs the Book Nooks? Anyone who is interested to volunteer. You can be a teacher, a librarian, somebody who's retired, anyone who is interested in promoting storytelling and reading in their community. Next slide. The NBDB supports the Book Nook not just by offering the Filipino book package, but also by giving them capacity building workshops. So there are two kinds of capacity building that they give. Tuklas Dunong, which is an online series of workshops, which covers everything from basic cataloging to engaging readers to establishing sustainability through community partnerships. And they also have the localized capacity building workshops, which they call Hibla Lokal, which I really like, because they ask the community, what do you think are the strategies we can adopt in your community? So they really source the ideas locally. And some of the communities want more storytelling. They want visual arts workshops to go with the reading initiatives. So they sort of crowd share in the community, and that becomes the fodder for Hibla Lokal. Next slide. Okay. There are so many imaginative spaces that are being run, and alternative spaces being run in the Philippines, and I wanted to just show you a sample. I had to cut the slides because of time, but I really wanted to show you how these spaces are really making a difference in their community. Next slide. One of these spaces is called Historia Studios. It's in Giginto, Bulacan, in Central Luzon. And it's a bookshop, a cafe, a gallery, an art space, because it's run by two visual artists. It's a beautiful space. They have this really unique workshop on typewriting. And you can see nine-year-olds and 10-year-olds just typing away and wondering what this amazing machine is. So they do that. They also have a lot of workshops for teens, like zine making and poetry workshops. Next slide. This is the bookshop. It's really nice. Okay, it's Toria. The next space is run by a guy that you will see here in the fair. His name is Christian Cordero. He's a Bicolano writer and filmmaker, and he started Savage Mind Art, Books, and Cinema in 2018 in Naga City and Camarines Sur. And they also host art exhibits, poetry readings, film screenings, and book launches. Next slide. This is how Savage Mind looks like, but they also have a big cafe, and they also have a big gallery for local artists. So again, an artist-run space that is making a difference in encouraging reading and an interest in literature and art in Naga City. Next slide. This is Poon in San Fernando, La Union. Next slide. It's the only neighborhood cafe, and if you support the bookshop, the proceeds of the bookshop will actually go through the Alfredo Tadyar Library, which is a library that promotes local history, local history and politics from the northern Philippines. So when you support Poon, you're actually increasing access to a very important library in La Union City. Next slide. This is a library that's right outside the house of Mang Nani Guanlao. Anyone can, next slide, anyone can freely take books, put their old books, deposit old books, and go back and get more books in this Aklatan sa Bangketa, which translates to a sidewalk library. So anyone can just use this library for free. And Mangani is a well-known community figure because he really just wants to share the magic of literature and the power of reading. So anyone can say, it's I guess it's the most democratic space because it's located in the streets, and anyone can actually pick up a book from that library. Next slide. This is Lost Books. There's an abandoned ATM kiosk. And somehow they have converted it into an independent bookshop cafe. Next slide, please. That's what it looks like. It's so cute. So for 250 a month, which is around 11 euros, you can go in and borrow books and participate in their book readings. Ay, sorry, 4 euros. Mali. Sorry, 4 euros. Okay. Mali yung math. Sorry. Sorry, reading. Okay. Next slide. Okay, this is Libreria in Dumaguete, Negros Oriental. It started as a community space for readers and writers online during COVID. And then it turned into an actual space in 2022. Next slide. Libreria has a silent book reading sessions that they're known for. So you just go there. You don't have to know the people you're reading with, and you just read silently. And if you're from the Philippines, you know that silence is rare and golden. Okay, the next alternative space is a space that was established by a friend of ours, KB Meñado, who's also in the Philippine Board on Books for Young People. It's called BB Monkey Book Bed. And it's a small space that also gives you the freedom to participate in writing workshops, in zine making, and reading circles. And it's a very welcoming space. So what did we learn from all of these wonderful spaces and from Dina's sharing earlier? That community literacy initiatives must really converge. So if there's a way for all of us to come together and to talk about everything that we're doing in our own community, I think that will really encourage a lot more reading among our young Filipinos. And that the successful programs that we've featured here really address diversity, not just diversity in terms of culture, but in terms of reading preferences and in terms of reading ability. And also, when we look at community efforts that have really been successful in reading promotion, we found that they don't just use one strategy, they really integrate learning to read, reading to learn, and reading for pleasure programs. And that has made them more effective and more responsive to the individual reading needs of Filipinos. And these are our references because we are teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shani, Dina. So we open the floor to your questions from the audience. Okay, ma'am, may I have a microphone for her, please?
Hello. First of all, I want to applaud all of these efforts you've put together, creating a structure for, structured literacy. Like, it's really like a toolkit that every single school in the Philippines should have, every single child should have. And at the same time, all of the community efforts displayed here are wondrous, finding creative solutions for a systemic problem. Question is, 133 book nooks, 1,500, if I remember the number right, 1,500 Tuklas Basa kits. But the universe of children in the Philippines is 30 million kids. Just for, badly put, 30 to 40 million children in the Philippines. In Germany, where I live now, it's raining books. I mean, it's like every single child has a wealth of access. Public libraries or books are just so affordable to every single child here. How do we get to that level where every single child in the Philippines can have this access? For example, your Tuklas Basa po, ma'am. How do we have the government make this the default toolkit for every single public school? And also for the book nooks not to be like the special occasion, but the norm across the Philippines po.
Right.
And how can this community of like international audience help contribute din po? Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for your question. So first thing, the vision of Tuklas Basa is not really for schools. It's really for communities. No, I think that there are many interventions that are being done in schools. So what we need to do, because we need to do it fast, because the problems are rather scary, right? So we need to do it fast. I think what we need to do is to activate local government units. The smaller the unit, the better. And hopefully get them to their people's organization or their community organization to take on a program. It doesn't have to be Tuklas Basa. It just has to have a good structured program and a strong volunteer network. Because without those volunteers who will have to be trained a little to implement whatever program, then that program is just a box, right? We need the people who will work with the children and play with children, read to children. So that's the first thing. I think that we need to be able to partner with local government units, and the sooner local government units understand that they need to know their education data. They need to know how many children in their village cannot read, how many children in their village do not go to school. They need to know that kind of data so they can actually provide the intervention. I think that putting all the responsibility on the Department of Education is just too much. We need to all work. This is the main point of our talk. It's everybody's business, right? It's everybody's business, and we should help each other do it. And usually the solutions to literacy problems are where the children are. The children are in villages, so we need to bring the solution to them directly. With regard to providing access to books.
Yes, I was about to add to what Dina said that what's wonderful about the spaces that we presented is that it shows you that a reading space could be any space, you know, and it could be an abandoned ATM kiosk. It could be a large heritage house somewhere in the Philippines. But what really fuels this is the collection of books, a well thought of and curated collection of books that NBDB provides for the book nook, for example, and the volunteers, a group of dedicated volunteers to make sure that space is running, because access really makes a difference. Like when I'm in Savage Mind, for example, in Naga, just to see all those young Nagueños having access to books from all over, not just from all over the Philippines, but from all over the world, that can really change their lives. So we really have to, as Dina said, it cannot be just government. It has to be individuals like us. It has to be communities coming together.
Thank you, Annie. Next question, the lady in the stripe. Ma'am.
No, and I get that. And I'm from Denmark, where there's also an abundance of books and everyone has access to libraries. But that doesn't mean that the literacy is very good, actually, because in our school at least, or my kids' school, they've asked us to actually read with the kids at least 20 minutes a day because reading comprehension is so low. And they ask us to, not pretend to read, but show the kids that reading doesn't necessarily have to do with schoolwork or work in itself. So what my question was there a plan to involve guardians or parents in this program? Because I think it's a really good start, but ultimately where you say that reading is where the children are, and they're also at home. So maybe also, maybe changing the, perception of reading is just not, just for school or for, yeah.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. In one of the community hubs that we've worked with, we actually work with mothers and grandmothers. And we've trained them how to use the Tuklas Basa for individual children. And so they're able to work with 2 or 3 children a day on the days that they go. And we're trying to integrate, because they already have books from Adarna Foundation in those hubs. So now we're trying to they know the storytelling bits already. What we're trying to teach them is now teach them to read. Because we can't just let them have listening comprehension. We need to teach them to read and to be able to conquer the written word, I think, because they have many languages to learn. They have to learn in English eventually. And so the sooner we get mother tongue and Filipino language literacy in place, then they will be stronger to learn English. Yeah. But yes, we do work with mothers.
What about fathers?
Too busy, too busy.
They can just buy the books. I'm just kidding. No, the fathers should also be reading to their children, right?
The father should read first.
Ouch.
So what you said about
They should model it.
yeah,
They
that
should model it,
reading has a
right?
lot to do with modeling. So when they see that the most significant adults in their lives, and for young children, that's their parents, are reading, then they will also want to read. They will take up the habit quite naturally. So pretend to read.
Sir Javi, a question?
Yeah, thank you. Very enlightening discussion. No? And apologies, I came a bit late, so the answers to my question might already have been said. No, when I first saw the slide on the Book Nook, I immediately thought of these Book Nook reading centers in SM malls. I don't know.
It has the same name.
Yeah, they're not. So it's
No,
not connected
it's
at all.
It's a
no?
separate project.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
my-
a different project.
Okay. So, considering malls now in the Philippines are becoming like the new public square, and in terms of foot traffic, there's probably a lot more there than a lot of streets or communities around the Philippines. So, my first question is, what do you think of that? I know it's a commercial space, and they're probably trying to draw people in to the Book Nook so they can also sell, fast food and all those other things. No, but what do you think of that initiative? Should we be encouraging reading centers in those kinds of commercial spaces? Because I noticed that most of the spaces that you showed were kind of community initiatives, voluntary efforts, which is great. But malls are like such a huge presence now in Philippine life. So parang it just seems to be an opportunity that maybe should be taken advantage of. But I'm wondering whether there's a big downside of that. Now, my second question is, there is a library law in the Philippines, right, which requires a public library or reading center in every congressional district, municipality, city, etc. So shouldn't we be like lobbying government to be doing, like this lady here mentioned, like every German child has access to so many books. I'm sure that's partly because government is funding a lot of these efforts, right? So shouldn't the Philippine government be doing a lot more? I mean, it's just, there's a law. So shouldn't that be budgeted? The government is budgeting so many other things, right? Like ghost projects, etc., right? But but shouldn't it be funding a lot of these efforts you're trying to create?
Yes, is the quick answer, right? They should be funding. There is a law that there should be a library in every barangay. It's not just a congressional district. So it's really local government, the smallest unit of government. And I think the problem really is when is it open, right? And then the other thing that we need to conceptualize is that library should now become a learning resource center where Wi-Fi is available and that all ages of children can participate and use these libraries. But that requires space, which they should dedicate. And second, people who encourage children. We need to have more engaging librarians or learning resource facilitators who don't require silence all the time. We need to be able to encourage more interactions. So that's one.
No, I was going to tell Howie, but he knows this naman that even if there's a law, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? Like there are so many laws pertaining to education that are supposed to mean more budgets allocated to educational purposes in cities, in barangays, and it doesn't really happen. So I think that's why Filipinos are more reliant on community efforts because they're so used to their government failing them. We are so used to our government
we
failing
are,
us.
yeah.
So we always resort to civil society. Regarding your first question about the book Nook, I don't know why they have the same name. I think it's fine. I think people have a lot of ordinary Filipinos have access to malls, and book nooks in malls also mean that those spaces are more democratic. So basta access, it's good. Yeah.
I also want to add, Howie, that we also need to do something with ourselves. Though I understand that government should provide the space, the holdings, all of those that are more expensive, children need interaction with language models, which would be adults. They need people who will read to them. And provided an easy to implement program such as Tuklas Basa, then somebody to teach them to read. These things are important because if we understand that these are the three things that ordinary people like us can do, then an hour a day or an hour a weekend from each one of us will create a huge impact on a child's literacy life or even school life. No,
For parents, it's 20 minutes according to
Yeah.
research. 20 minutes of reading
20 minutes of
reading
reading,
every
yeah.
day. That's a small
Yeah.
part of our day. We spend 20 minutes on TikTok. So might as well
Yeah.
read to our child. Yeah.
So part of the intervention, I think, because at least we've created ways of teaching, right? Part of the intervention, I think, is now adult education on what they can do as parents, as titos, titas, grandmothers, grandfathers, to intervene and to help their children read.
Okay, we have one more question or two. Maybe I have a question, ma'am, about mother tongue because you've mentioned it before. But what is the status right now? Because the last time I checked is that there's a plan, and but I think it hasn't been carried out yet that much. So where are we right now when it comes to mother tongue?
Well, in terms of education, they've reverted to a bilingual education policy already, right? This is why even more now community education is important because the languages are in communities. So if the metric of the Department of Education for successful education is in Filipino and English, then all the more young children should be supported in their mother tongues in communities. Yeah.
Because it's also the communities that see the importance of
Yeah,
these
because
languages.
they're the ones who value their languages. They're the ones who want to keep their languages alive.
We pass the responsibility now to the communities because it's a lot more like,
Because they
integrated,
own those
closer,
languages
yeah.
also, diba? They own those languages, and so it's important to include them. And just to share, I didn't mention it earlier because I was rushing. For example, the Tuklas Basa lessons are products of co-production. Now, the mothers did not really make the lessons because they weren't confident, but we asked them what they wanted to teach their children. And they said, my child doesn't know the alphabet. Can you please put alphabet teaching there? I can see my child's handwriting is terrible, which is since the pandemic, this has really worsened, right? So my child's handwriting is terrible. Can you please put it there? So based on their advice, we did that. The other thing they told us was that volunteers disappear. So they would have a cohort of volunteers, for example, starting in September. But by the time it's summer where there are heat waves, they no longer have volunteers. And so the community learning hub closes down. Yeah. And so I don't know if there's a need to now migrate it to handheld device so that actually parents can do it in their homes, because it would be impossible to have these kits in every home. It's too costly. So maybe the next phase of Tuklas Basa is now digital. Yeah. And that's where people can help us. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
We need volunteers back home. No. Anyway, we're looking for like one or two more questions before we end. Yes, okay, yeah, ma'am, please go ahead. Yes. Oh, wait, let's wait for the microphone.
My second question earlier was, to this international audience, how can we help? What can we do to contribute to this efforts po?
I'll give you my GCash number. Actually, some of these spaces actually have on their website a way to help them, a way to support them through funds. So you can, if any of these spaces were really tugged at your heart more than the others, then you can check them out. You can also ask us later after the talk if how you can help with either Tuklas Basa or Wikahon.
Of course, I have no power at all over any of these library spaces like Savage and the street library. But for me, in my imagination, every one of these spaces should have a literacy program for children who need to be taught how to read, right? So that it supports the child's desire to read those books. So what we're trying to do is to have children who can read and then eventually who will read. And so if there's a way to provide any intervention program in such libraries, because it supports the adults around the children. Let me tell you a story. One of the volunteers of the UP Diliman Pahinungod program, she's a veteran volunteer. She's volunteered in their barangay, in their church, teaching children. And she was telling me, always I have to prepare my lesson. And I don't know if my lesson is relevant to the child at that time. Because she doesn't even know who is the child she will teach at that time. Today, this was also the experience during the pandemic with Angat Buhay. Because the volunteers and the children don't really meet every session. So what we designed was a process where you actually follow what the child is doing. And then she said to me, Teacher Dina, having a program that is actually structured like that and we can monitor where the child is, even if Annie was the tutor last week and I'm the tutor this week, I know where to start again. And she says, for a volunteer, that's very empowering. So you see, we need to work with the volunteers also to support how they can support. We need to take care of those who take care of others, right?
Is there a volunteer network or like a website or a group that takes care of that? Like you enlist to this organization, volunteers?
It depends on the organization. So, for example, in UP Diliman, there's Pahinungod, and you can enlist there. Alumni, student, kahit sino actually, anyone. Yeah. So it depends on the NGO. Yeah.
All right, we have like room for one more question before we end our talk today. Kumar? Oh, okay, I see the lady. Yeah.
Hello. It's 20 years already. And in the 80s, I remember 80s, and early 90s, in our province, in Ilocos Norte, we have this so-called reading centers. In every barangay, there are 6 puroks, we call it in Ilocano, and we have this little Bahay Kubo, where old newspapers or reading materials are like our alamat and everything. And we have reading evenings and afternoon. I went there 18 years after, and there's nobody anymore. But they concentrated on development of roads, development of flood controls, but reading is lost. And then we have this Ilocano and English, and I said, it's good that we improve and preserve our national language and dialects, but we should not forget we are in the 21st century. How we balance this, and that's what's missing in our reading programs in the Philippines. As I was still studying in Mariano Marcos State University, we have this non-formal education as a subject, as a thesis a project. But now it's something I miss as I went there last April. So this is really good. Reading is everyone's business. And it's not only the mother. I learned more about literature from my father. So, but I'm very proud. I'm almost 25 years in Germany, and I could say our reading program, our literacy program in the Philippines is very, very high. And I'm very proud to be a Filipino German.
Thank you. They do have alternative literacy system within the Department of Education. They just renamed it from NF, from non-formal. It's now called ALS. No? And they have alternative delivery modalities also of education. So they do exist, these programs do exist within the framework of the Department of Education. So they're there. In teacher education, there is also a subject on alternative literacy and alternative learning. But our push is that it doesn't become just alternative, that it becomes a viable option for families to choose progressive processes of education, home education, and community-based education, and of course, institution or school-based education. And the more options there are for families, the more responsive we will be to their needs. But at the moment, the Department of Education, I think, has built so many schools, much more than there were 40 years ago, and there's greater access already. Yeah. So I think what we are now trying to do is to ensure that every school is a good school, right? We don't want to have just any school. So it's important now for the Department of Education to put emphasis on quality.
All right, so we're about to wrap up. So, Ma'am Annie, Dina, do you have any final words before we end our talk today?
Well, I hope that everyone realizes that what the Philippines is going through right now is really a literacy crisis. We are in a dire situation. That's why Dina and I are talking about ways that we can actually take it upon ourselves to help abate this crisis, to help solve it by doing what we can as a community. And we've seen that community efforts like the ones we've presented have been effective and have the potential to be done in other places. So we're hoping that more Filipinos will take on this challenge and will realize the importance of making every child a reader.
On my end, I think that we must empower ourselves and know that each of us can be a reading teacher. And we don't need to be a teacher to be able to do that. We can, with the guidance of a program or a process that we study, that we can actually help children where they are, and they're usually in our homes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That ends our program. Reading is everyone's business. Good afternoon.
Ang halaman doon ay sari-sari, singkamas sa talong, sigarilya at mani, sitaw, bataw, patani. Undol, patola, upot, kalabasa, at saka mayroon pa labanos, mustasa, sibuyas, kamatis, bawang at luya. Sa paligid-ligid ay puno lingha. Bahay, kubo, kahit munti, ang halaman doon ay sari-sari. Singkamas at talong, sigarilyas at mani, sitaw, bataw, patani. Undol, patola, upot, kalabasa, at saka mayroon pa labanos, mustasa, sibuyas, kamatis, bawang at luya. Sa paligid-ligid ay puno lingha. Sitsiritsit, alibang-bang, sa laginto, sa lagubang, ang babae sa lansangan, kung gumiri parang tandang, Santo Niño sa pandakan, Puto Seco sa tindahan, kung ayaw kang magpautang, ubusin ka ng langgam. Mama na mamang ka, pasakayin niya ring bata, pagdating sa Maynila, ipagpalit ng manika. Ale-ale na mamayo, pasukubin niya ring sanggol, pagdating sa Malabon, ipagpalit ng bago. Sitsiritsit, alibang-bang, sa laginto, sa lagubang, ang babae sa lansangan, kung gumiri parang tandang, Santo Niño sa pandakan, Puto Seco sa tindahan, kung ayaw kang magpautang, ubusin ka ng langgam. Mama na mamang ka, pasakayin niya rin bata, pagdating sa Maynila, ipagpalit ng manika. Ale-ale na mamayo, pasukubin niya rin sanggol, pagdating sa Malabon, ipagpalit ng bago. Alibang-bang, sa laginto, sa lagubang, ang babae sa lansangan, kung gumiri parang tanda, kung gumiri parang tanda.
The coconut nut is a giant nut. If you eat too much, you get very fat. Now the coconut nut is a big, big nut, but this delicious nut, it's not a nut, it's the cocoa fruit.
It's the cocoa fruit
Of the cocoa tree,
of the cocoa tree.
from the cocoa palm family. There are so many uses of the coconut tree. You can build a big house for the family. All you need is to find the coconut man. If he cuts the tree, he gets the fruit free. It's the cocoa fruit
It's the cocoa fruit
of the cocoa tree,
of the cocoa tree.
from the cocoa palm family. The coconut bark for the kitchen floor. If you save some of it, you can build a door. Now the coconut trunk, do not throw this junk. If you save some of it, you'll have second floor. The coconut wood is very good. It can stand 20 years if you pray it would. Now the coconut root, to tell you the truth, you can throw it or use it as firewood. The coconut leaves good shade it gives for the roof, for the walls, up against the thieves. Now the coconut fruit, say my relatives, make good cannonballs up against the thieves. It's the cocoa fruit
It's the cocoa fruit
of the cocoa tree,
of the cocoa tree.
from the cocoa palm family. nut. It's a giant nut. If you eat too much, you get very fat. Now the coconut nut, it's a big, big nut, but it's delicious nut. It's not a nut, it's the cocoa fruit of the cocoa tree. From the cocoa palm family, it's the cocoa fruit of the cocoa tree. From the cocoa palm family, it's the cocoa fruit of the cocoa tree. From the cocoa palm family.